Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. So, today, let's talk about that was how my first public speech went. A Teachers' Day celebration in a school assembly with hundreds of students watching. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. My hands were shaking, my throat was dry, and for the first time, I did what no speaker ever wants to do. I walked off the stage after I barely spoke for 20 seconds, humiliated. Now I will never forget that moment for the rest of my life, the taste of defeat and utter humiliation. My first experience of public speaking. Now evidently, my first speech lasted 30 seconds. The TEDx committee wants me to speak for 15 minutes, so I will try my best. Now, when we talk about resilience, we often think resilience is something you are born with, this heroic trait coded within your DNA. But the truth is, resilience is not born within you. It is triggered. It starts when you decide to continue even when you fail. Now looking back, that walk off the stage during Teachers' Day completely broke me to pieces. I remember going home, lying on my bed and thinking to myself, maybe I shouldn't speak. Maybe I should just keep quiet. No one is going to respect what I say anyway. In that moment, I felt a surge of emotions. Embarrassment, anger, you name it. But for some reason, as I experienced all of this, I thought to myself, what if I try again? What if next time I actually finish what I want to say on stage? That moment planted a seed within me, and that seed was resilience. As mentioned earlier, resilience doesn't start from within you just like that. It starts when you decide to continue even when you fail. In this instance, I decided to continue after my first failure with public speaking. Now the thing is, I didn't just want to be a speaker. I wanted to speak well, because I knew that in today's world, anyone who speaks well is looked at differently. I think we can all agree. So I thought to myself, how can I become a great speaker? What is the secret? What is the magic formula? I thought of books, I thought of mentors, I thought of speaking classes. We are talking hours of deep reflection here, soul searching. And then finally, it hit me. The ultimate solution, the answer. Would any of you like to take a guess? Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for this? The secret to becoming a great speaker is to Google it. Now I can see the look on some of your faces. Do you really think it was that easy? Come on, do you know how hard it is for me to Google search how to speak like a leader? Anyways, jokes aside, I know it sounds funny, but hey, we all start somewhere, okay? So, I did my research. But at some point, I wanted to do things differently. You see, I didn't want to search for guides or research papers about techniques on how to speak well. Believe me, I've seen how that works. Someone wants to learn how to speak, so what do? They go to Google or YouTube and search for guides, and then they note down the techniques. Well, in most cases, yes, you get information, but it doesn't usually produce the results that you want. So as I said, I wanted to do things differently. So what did I do? I decided to learn by actually studying speakers who spoke well. Study the speaker, not the techniques. So as I went down this rabbit hole, there were 4 world-renowned speakers that caught my attention. The first speaker that caught my attention is Barack Obama. Now this is not a surprise. He is one of the best public speakers this world has ever seen. He is famous for speaking clearly and deliberately using pauses in his speeches to create impact. The second speaker that caught my attention is Donald Trump. Now again, I can see the look on some of your faces. I know what you're thinking. Did this guy really just mention Donald Trump as an example of a good public speaker in a TEDx talk? Yes, I did. Because say what you want about him, and there is a lot you could say, to be fair. Let's be honest, a lot of people make fun of his speaking style. They say it's funny. But Donald Trump has one thing that every speaker craves for. He is extremely confident. This man can walk on stage, say something outrageously controversial, and for some reason, half of the room cheers for him, and the other half of the room wants to kick him off the stage. But the point is, no one ignores him. Now this is important because when you are a speaker, being ignored is the worst thing that can happen to you. Believe me. The third speaker that caught my attention is Martin Luther King. Now he was an amazing person. He was a freedom fighter, a social activist. And do you know what he was most famous for? His speeches. His speeches were powerful because he used a special technique, repeated phrases. He had this famous sentence that he always said, I have a dream. Now this sentence, I have a dream, he said this sentence repeatedly, multiple times, in the same speech. And for some reason, by doing this created an effect. The audience that witnessed his speech resonated well, and it made their hearts burn with love for his cause. But among all of the three speakers that I mentioned, there is one more speaker that I studied more than anyone else. Someone who never stood behind a podium on TV, but spoke like a politician every day of his life. Now there is a high chance that most of you have never seen or heard of this man. Well, that is because he is my father. Thank you. Now, I've seen my father speak in many events since I was young. He had that kind of voice that would just make you sit up straight, that fire in his tone, that deliberate pace. This man could walk into a room and with just a few words, own it. In fact, he is the person who made me want to speak in front of an audience in the first place. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have developed an interest in public speaking. And today, he is sitting right there in the audience, watching me speak on stage. Whew. Trust me, I'm feeling so much pressure right now. Anyways, so I watched and studied the speakers that I mentioned, and to me, one thing became very clear. You will only become a good speaker by actually speaking in front of people, not practicing on your own. Because, trust me, there is a huge difference between practicing to speak on your own and practicing to speak in a room full of people. These are two completely different things. Believe me, I've seen many people practice their speech for days, weeks, months on their own. But when it comes to the day of their speech, they either get extremely nervous or they manage to speak, but it doesn't turn out the way they want it to. So at this point, I knew what I had to do. I knew I had to speak in front of more people. I had to continuously force myself to have an opportunity to speak in front of people whenever I got the opportunity to do so, until I eventually got better. But here was the problem. I had an issue. Despite knowing this, I was scared. I didn't want to volunteer to go on stage and speak in front of an audience because I knew I wasn't good. I didn't want to go on stage and not live up to expectations. I was a terrible speaker back then. And so I was in this moment of hesitation. And in this moment of hesitation, I remembered a quotation that my parents had always told me since I was young. Let each morn be better than its eve, and each morrow richer than its yester. This quotation was written by Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith. It's a beautiful quotation, isn't it? What it means is simple but powerful. It's basically a call to grow, to wake up each day aiming to be just a little better than the person we were yesterday, to live each day in such a way that when the sun sets, we can look back and say, I did something worthwhile today. And when tomorrow comes, we build on that momentum. Essentially what this quote is telling us is that we shouldn't aim for perfection all at once. Instead, we should strive to be a little better each day. It's about momentum, not comparison. Improvement, not perfection. I wanted to share this quote because it reminds us that resilience is not about this one big comeback. It's about small little steps. Choosing to start, choosing to learn, choosing to grow every single day. And so I lived by this quote. Eventually, I started saying yes to everything, every opportunity I got. Club meetings, random events, competitions, I said yes to everything. At first it was terrifying because, as I said, I was a terrible speaker. Sometimes my heart would race, sometimes my hands would tremble, and sometimes I would forget my entire speech halfway through. But regardless, I continued. Eventually, I saw improvement. Sometimes I spoke in front of an audience of 5 people, sometimes 50 people. But every stage, no matter how small, became my practice ground. At first, my speeches were full of filler words. Filler words are basically words like, those are filler words. At some point, I felt like my speeches was just a long list of filler words. But eventually, I managed to trim them out. And I noticed improvement. My sentences became sharper. My voice carried further. And my confidence started to show up even before fear had a chance to do so. When I entered university, I joined Toastmasters. For those of you who don't know what it is, Toastmasters is a public speaking club. I became an active member in this club for 1 year, and now I am the vice president of membership for the club. Now instead of them helping me, now I help students who need help with their speaking. I reach out to students who need help, and I try my best to foster a culture in the club to ensure they feel safe to give speeches and improve. Every single time I step on stage, I tell myself, this isn't competition, this is not a performance, this is practice. And that is exactly the mindset that took away the pressure from me. 6 years ago, I walked off the stage with my head held down. I convinced myself that speaking wasn't for me. But now, I confidently walk on stage with my head held high. Not because the fear is gone, but because I know the fear will always be there, but I choose to acknowledge it and carry it with me. I may not be the best speaker in Malaysia. I'm not the best speaker in the state. I'm not the best speaker in Kampar. I'm not even the best speaker in this university. But if my younger self could see how I speak today, he wouldn't believe what he saw. And that is exactly what I'm proud of. I'm proud of the fact that I chose to take action and improve day after day after day. Somewhere out there is a teenager who is about to walk off their first stage in embarrassment. Somewhere in this audience is someone who just failed or maybe fell short. So to you, I say this. Resilience doesn't need you to start with a perfect game plan. It just needs you to tell yourself, let's try again. And then you take that first step, even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if your father is sitting in the audience with very high expectations. Because, ladies and gentlemen, resilience is not about how you begin. It's about whether or not you are willing to begin over and over and over again. Thank you.